painted all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
Well, hello, Great Britain. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing all right. As you can see from that sun up there, we are in sunny Southern California right now. My name is Sean Campbell. I am the founder and chief creative officer of Campbell Coachworks. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you to Adam the REV for setting this up. I really appreciate the opportunity to show some of the stuff we're working on here in the wind, as well as see all the stuff you guys are working on over there. It's fantastic to see that stuff. Our car shows are shut down here as well, so really getting in to see what you guys are working on really stokes the fires that are deep inside all of us car guys. So I think it's important to give you guys a little bit of background. First and foremost, a little bit of background of our location here. If you can see the mountains behind me there, that is the south, and beyond those mountains by about 30-40 miles is actually the great country of Mexico. If I look to these mountains over here between those buildings, you can see there's another mountain set. About an hour's drive that way is San Diego. And if I spin around all the way here, the mountains, another mountain range north of us there, on the other side of those mountains is Palm Springs, and then beyond that is Los Angeles, and then back to Hollywood, where I believe you guys just came from. So a little bit of perspective of our location. Borrego Springs is a tiny little desert town in the middle of a gigantic state park. 600,000 square acres of pristine desert wilderness that my wife, my friends, and we all love to explore. And a little bit more about that and coming up in just a minute. For those of you who do know me, you may not even recognize me because of my pandemic facial hair here. You're welcome. I am former Aston Martin color materials designer. I lived in the West Midlands for about 4 years, ranging from 2015 all the way up to 2019. Some of the projects I worked on while at Aston Martin: DB11 Coupe, DB11 Volante, DB11 AMR Special Edition, a bunch of special editions on the Rapide. So if any of you guys are driving those cars, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy some of the fruits of my labor in those days. And today I'm going to show you a little bit about some of the stuff that I've been working on, that we've been working on since those days. So why don't we go inside and show you around. So welcome to the lounge at Campbell Coachworks. Basically, this is an area where we kind of chill out, but let's be honest, it's kind of an homage to petrol heads everywhere. As you can see, we have our helmet rack full of helmets. There's a few of them missing right now, but for helmets, for all of our motorcycles, we've got a whole rack full of DVDs that are dedicated to every car chase movie ever made, as well as every cowboy movie ever made, because you know they're both awesome. Something of note, some of you guys may recognize that sign. That is a speed limit sign I had out front, and one day 2 amazing women in a black Lamborghini Countach came out and spray painted that sign. Not that I'm upset, but if those 2 ladies are watching this, please feel free to come back anytime, and we can talk about that sign some more. Speaking of signs, something that I scored off of eBay UK, that sign used to be on the building outside of
the Pirelli's facility in London, and I got it off of eBay real cheap. Just a note to everybody, if you're going to advertise a sign, make sure to spell the company right. I found that and got it real cheap. And of course, no lounges, complete without a hand-built Italian motorcycle just sitting in there waiting to be fired right up. But enough about the lounge. Let's make our way out here, out to the studio, and take another look. Just out past our kitchen area into the main studio area. Lots of storage over there. So basically, this is my desk area where I do a lot of design work. You do a little bit of sketching, a little bit of laptop work, a lot of emails, but to a certain extent, that is where the magic is happening for me these days, and I am 100% stoked about that. Yeah, we got a lot of motorcycles laying around Campbell Coachworks. This is our setup for our desert exploration around the park that we have. These are Yamaha TW200s, and as you can see, we've outfitted them a little bit. So we have some extra auxiliary lights up front, more light at night because it gets real dark out in the desert, as well as extra fuel and extra water, because without that kind of stuff in the desert, you are kind of inviting trouble. And as we look around here, I think it's important to talk about that right there. That is the grill I literally pulled off of a 1953 Jeepster as a college project way back in the day. What's really depicted in that, it's an art project, but it's really talking about historical significance of the Jeep brand. You can see on the right side, it's the olive drab with the star, which really, as you well know, very important vehicle in the World War II, the Second World War conflict. But what you may not know is only 10 years later, very similar Jeeps to the one that were saving the world were used around the globe at resorts. They were Surrey Jeeps that were carting people around to the tennis courts, as well as different events to the beach and back. So what I really love about that Jeep is that that vehicle literally can do anything from an implement of war or just to cart people around back and forth to the beach and not. So you will see that there is a theme there. That is really what's kicking off some of the restyling work that we've been talking about here at Campbell Coachworks. And when I talk about restyling, I'm talking about not necessarily restoration, but it's restoration, it's renovation, it's resurrection, it's recycling, and that's something that we call restyling. And I'll get a little bit more into that once we make our way out to the workshop. Yeah, I got that light off of a boat. Anyways, a little bit about our location here. I have some maps on the wall. So we are currently in the town of Borrego Springs, which is right here. And as you can see, this whole thing here, 600,000 square acres, is the Anza Borrego Desert State Park, the largest state park in California. And you can see we are a little bit of a donut hole here, surrounded by mountains and then beautiful desert. And there are so many areas, and you can see some of my favorite trails. I've actually labeled them so friends can join us as well on some of the trails. But definitely, if you get the opportunity, come out into the desert and visit us. And it's very, very beautiful out there. And if you're lucky, I'll get to show you all my best friends. They're scorpions and a few spiders as well. Here's a little hint about what I'm going to show you coming up there. Some of that stuff out in the workshop. So why don't we make our way outside and we'll go from there. Whew. So the first thing that you'll notice when you walk outside from an air-conditioned building in the desert is the heat. Let's just check our thermometer here. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like it's about 105 degrees Fahrenheit and just over 40 Celsius for us right now. So please excuse me if I get a little bit of sweat on my forehead. So just outside, oh, there's our Ferrari reel. Best use of a 308 wheel is to wrap your hose. Got a little bit of a barbecue area out here. Again, that's
also a work in progress, but eventually that'll be a nice little picnic area. So let's make our way out to the workshop. Oh yeah, right over here. We recently lost our mascot from Campbell Coachworks. Our pup Cooper passed away not too long ago, so we kind of set up a little memorial for him. Best dog ever. So as we're walking over here to the workshop, as you can see, that's the project we're going to be talking about. But before we get there, let's come on in here and take a look at this. Some of you may actually recognize this. That is Olive. Olive is a 1981 Fiat 126 that I used to commute to Aston Martin with all the time. Partially because I have a twisted sense of humor. The other part of it was when you're working on V12 powered exotic cars all day long and they're limitless as far as customization and things, you almost want to drive, or at least I did. I thought it would be kind of funny to drive the anti-Aston Martin, and that's pretty much what I have there. Is, again, it's a car that I found on eBay UK. I took it, it was in good solid shape, but I went through the entire thing and made lots and lots of upgrades to this car. First thing that you'll see are those are authentic magnesium Chromadora rims off of Alfa Romeo of the same era, as well as it's sitting nice and low. It's actually nice and low to the ground. It's got an Abarth spec suspension system that I put on there. So, you know, when you're flying around the racetrack in a Fiat 126, it's really important that it handles really well. Tongue fully in cheek there. I've done, like I said, you can see I did the exhaust. I'm still wearing my my number plates from the UK because I never really got around to making this. I don't think this vehicle will ever be street legal in California because of the emission standards. So currently right now it's decoration, but we'll figure out a way to do that. What I was going to say is I did a lot of work on the engine, put a new transmission in there, and yes, it's a very tiny 650cc engine, but I used a lot of hot rodder techniques with that. And let's see if you can kind of see some of that. Again, I think I've been doing some work on this, so it's not 100% there, but a lot of little hot rodder techniques, including improving the intake as well as the exhaust system. And I think this car really originally has about 30 horsepower, maybe 25 horsepower, and with a few of those hot rodder techniques of increasing power, I think I got about 35, maybe 40 horsepower out of it, which is comical, but let's be honest, that's a huge upgrade over what it had. So pretty stoked about that particular thing. And I can tell you right now, this car has less rust than when I left the UK. Sure, it's got a little bit of rust, but because it's so beautifully, fantastically dry and warm out here in the desert, this car has actually lost some of the bubbles that were occurring in some of the weak spots. And as a super bonus perk, this car runs substantially better here with the warm, dry air than it did in the West Midlands where I was living. So if you guys are interested in making your cars in the UK, make them run a little better, I highly recommend moving to California where your cars will run better. I will let you guys discuss that with your spouses, and you can get back to me on how that works out for you. But so let's move over here. First and foremost, that's a project that I really want to talk to you guys about. That right there, if you are not familiar, and maybe I can move around here and give you a front shot, that is a 1953 M37 Dodge Power Wagon. This is
a ex-United States Army vehicle. It is a 3/4 ton pickup truck, although the vast majority of his trucks did a lot more and carried a lot more and towed a lot more than the 3/4 ton the differentiation would allow them. But just if you're not familiar, I'm gonna kind of walk you around just a little bit, and I'll tell you some of the work that we've done on it and taken it from there. But you can see the shovel axe rack on the back. You see the fuel filler, some of the gizmos in the back there, as well as one of my favorite features. If you guys are familiar with the Rivian electric pickup truck that's coming out soon, you'll notice that they have this really cool pass-through storage in their in the rear of the truck, in the front of the bed, and I think they were inspired by this. Let's see if you can see. I got a bunch of stuff in there, but that pass-through goes all the way through. Great place to hide all kinds of tools and things. I believe originally they were sliding rifles in there, and they will easily fit. And you know, everything on this truck is solid. You know, very, very solid. And we'll walk around to the front here. Let's see if I can open this thing. Very heavy hood. See if I can get this open. There we go. Oh, hang on a second, guys. There we go. So, tilt that back. What you're looking there is a 230 straight, flat head, straight inline 6-cylinder engine. The original engine for this. You know, it's a workhorse motor. The downside is this is a very heavy truck. This is not the strongest of motors, but the military only really ever moved along. It'll top out at about 45 miles an hour. So eventually, what I had been planning was a drag race between that Rockstar and this thing. But because this is my wife's truck, let me restate that. This is my wife's anniversary present. So it's her truck, and it is not a dragster. Something very interesting while I'm here is you'll see that these are actually waterproof spark plugs, and it's got a waterproof distributor down there, which is, I don't know if you can see that, but again, this truck is made for serious abuse, and that's part of the plan. So as far as restyling goes with this truck, you know, it's been restored. It has been, I actually got it from a company that bought it. It had been restored, resprayed in this color, which most purists can't stand this color, but because we are in the desert, that's part of the appeal for me. I think it's a gorgeous color, and it will look gorgeous sitting in the desert. And so our plan was to take this and turn it into an overland expedition vehicle. And you can see some of those renderings that I've put together here. You know, some different ideas of putting a much larger set of wheel on there, a much larger set of tires. And I really love this idea of putting a couple of jump seats in the back. As you can see, there's plenty of room back there with a 4-point racing harness. And so that we can take some more people with us while we're exploring the desert. Some other ideas of putting that canopy back on like it had originally in the military as well. Again, some of that stuff. So this is a long-term build. Obviously, we're working on other things, but really this truck is fantastic when it comes to the chunky, funky attitude. I've restored all these tools and kind of put them on. You can kind of see in the back, that is actually a ladder that folds down. So when you tip the tailgate down, there's a ladder that folds out so you can step in, because this truck is pretty tall, and my goal is to be able to accommodate
kids, as well as maybe even my in-laws in the back seats when we get these, and then we can go explore the desert. Some of the quick additions are the Trasharoo bag. If you're off-roading in the US, I recommend a bag like this to either carry stuff or carry your trash. Nobody likes the guy that leaves their trash out in the desert. Take it home with you, please. And no off-roader is complete without an amazing high lift jack, which I made some brackets and bolted that thing right onto the side of the truck. It's nice and solid. Also, one of the cool parts about the M37 is that jerry can that's on the side of the vehicle. Gotta love those things as well. And I've done just a couple of things in the interior so far. Again, it's gonna need a lot more work. I really wanna do the interior completely. Change the seats out. I put that hot rod inspired shift knob on there. So here's my book that I was looking for. So as a designer, you'll see designers are always carrying their sketchbooks with them. This is no different. And I can show you some of the stuff that I've been working on, just ideas. There's some different ideas of wheels and tires that I want to go with, some quick sketches. There's some different stuff of different lighting, off-road lighting that I want to do, similar to those dirt bikes that you saw in the studio. Again, those are some seats for the rear area that thinking about. These are actually out of a Subaru Brat, but I think the same idea works really well. Just have to figure out safety precautions and seat belts and things like that. And again, just different sketches of quick Photoshop work of what the vehicle could look like, or different ideas. There's even some of those fuel cans as well. Interior photos of how I'm going to route the seat belts, and some elements like that, and sketching of different ways to build a rack as well as little caricatures and that I was doing while on the phone or in boring meetings. But I think it's important to note that this is kind of how we work as far as designers. We come up with ideas and then we kind of sketch it out, and sometimes our sketching is clipping images. Yeah, there you can see some inspiration of using that high lift jack and some cool switches that are gonna eventually end up right there. But essentially that's our project, and what I haven't told you is, if you can't see it, the first time I saw this truck, I immediately thought of one of my favorite programs from the 80s, the A-Team, you know, the show with Mr. T. So when you look at this truck and you see that color and that cream, and you know that it's got a severe military history, and it's the older, more mature, commanding leader of that team, it's a no-brainer to think that truck is named Hannibal. So my wife and I named it Hannibal, and that name stuck. So eventually, if you are able to view our website or take a look at some of the Instagram, Campbell Coachworks, hashtag Campbell Coachworks or campbellcoachworks.com, you'll see this is a slow-growing process, but this is a very, very fun project. So essentially, that's what I got for you today. Let me just spin this around. And I just want to, again, say thanks to Adam. Please donate to Mission Motorsport. And I appreciate the opportunity to show you Campbell Coachworks, as well as show you a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing since I left Aston Martin. It's so good to hear from you guys. And please take care of yourselves these days. And thanks a lot. Enjoy. Bye.